ChatGPT has just launched this new image generation model, and one of the most exciting things that I've noticed is that they're saying that it can now produce production-ready assets. So the ad looks impressive. They even show the number of product images in the product video by OpenAI. So I wanted to test it out myself to understand its new capabilities and also to see whether or not it can create social media ads using real product images. So to date, the model has been pretty good in terms of creating mock images and not necessary images of real products. So in this video, I'm going to be using real products to test its capabilities. So for our use case, we're going to be using this Rayco oil filter. So here we've got the product as well as the packaging. Now the main reason I've picked this image is because I want to test to see if ChatGPT can replicate the product as well as the packaging with intricate details. So here we've got the logo, the text, the graphics, the product itself, and a badge. And now if we zoom in on the side of the box, the text here is a little bit hard to read, so I'm just going to add an additional reference image of the side of the box to help it along. So here I've just grabbed an image online of the side of the box. So in ChatGPT, we're just going to open up a new chat, and then we're just going to add our reference image. So to add an image, click on the plus icon and click Add Photos. And here I've added the original product image as well as an image of the side of the box. So for the first prompt, here I've just typed in create a Facebook ad using the attached photos. And I've also added here reference that the text and image on the side of the box is currently unreadable, and to use the reference image to create an accurate image of the packaging. Now I'm not going to give it any direction in terms of the style, the design, the layout, topography, and I'll just give it full autonomy to create the ad. And now let's just see what it comes up with. So overall the design looks pretty good at a glance, considering I didn't actually provide any context in terms of design, the layout, but personally I think there's a bit too much text. Now if we click on the image, here you'll be able to see a number of additional features here. So if we click on the wand icon, here you can highlight different parts of the image that you want to change, and you can type in your prompt to edit the image. You can also change the aspect ratio of your image by selecting this button here and select from some of their predefined options, including portrait and landscape. This does make it a lot easier to use because rather than prompting the changes in terms of aspect ratio, you can select from the drop-down box, or if there's a specific aspect ratio that you're after, you can always add it into your prompt. And now if we go back to the original image, the alignment and spacing looks great. You can see that ChatGPT has automatically used a bright red, which is consistent with the Rayco red. Now whether or not it matches the exact brand colors, not really sure. However, considering that I didn't actually provide it with any color palettes, it's done a pretty good job in terms of estimating the actual color. Now I'm not sure if you can actually see it on your side, but the color of the text here for engine performance looks a little bit brighter than the actual color block used here. So there's some minor color consistency issues with this image. So in terms of the ad copy here, I can't see that there's any obvious spelling errors. So if I think back to the previous model, where there was a few spelling errors here and there, the spelling has definitely improved with the new model. Now I'm not sure what the background image is here, but if you can make it out, let me know in the comments below. The obvious missing object from the ad is the additional Rayco logo on the side of the box. So while the text, color, the ad copy can easily be changed, what I'm keen to see is whether ChatGPT has preserved the original product image. And now it's really hard to tell like this, so we're just going to download the image to compare the pair. So to download the image, click on the arrow button. Okay, so I've just popped it into a PowerPoint presentation and I've resized the product image so that we can compare the pair. And now if we have a look at the product itself, you can see that the original oil filter is a little bit wider than the actual image in the ad. The box on the other hand appears to be wider in the ad as compared to the original product image. And now we're just going to use a highlighter to focus on the actual product itself to see where the main differences are. And I'm going to highlight the missing logo that we identified earlier. Now let's just zoom in on the actual filter itself. And now if we have a look at the text on the actual ad as compared to the product image, ChatGPT did a really good job in terms of replicating the actual logo, the name, as well as the product number. So even the quality of the image is a lot better. So the logo and the text box here looks like it's a pretty good match in terms of the product image. But when we have a look at the badge here, the actual word for performance is not very clear. As well as the text for oil filter, it's not very clear here, as compared to the original product image. So we'll just mark these. Now let's have a look to see the side of the box. So there's definitely a noticeable difference in terms of the design. And while you can read the text, the actual labels on the side of the box is not an accurate reflection of the actual product itself. Now I have tested the ad with multiple revisions, and here's what I found. Now while the new model is very good at following instructions in terms of the design, the layout and adding in the text, it was not able to create an ad with the exact replica of the original image. Over time it started to drift, and the proportions and the finer details were completely out, even after adding in strict instructions to follow and guardrails. In terms of brand, it was able to replicate the logo and brand colours. Now it's important to note that while I provided it with the colour code, when I cross-checked the details using a colour picker, it was not an exact match. So I even tried the thinking mode to see whether or not that made a difference. However, having a look at the image itself, there were still some inconsistencies in terms of how it generated the image. So while ChatGPT is getting a lot better in terms of generating image, what we're finding is that it's still struggling with real-life application in terms of brand consistency as well as product accuracy. Now, I was able to replicate different font styles quite well. In terms of colours, it was pretty much a close match, and you couldn't really tell in most instances. The main issue that I found is that it kept reconstructing the original product image in its design rather than placing the image in the actual design itself. For the time being, I'll definitely say it's great for mock-ups and in terms of experimenting with different designs, as it kept reconstructing the original image rather than treating it as a fixed asset, and it wasn't able to consistently preserve the branding. So the speed in which it generated the images is unreal. So if you're using it to explore creative mock-ups, it's definitely good for that, because you can use it to explore creative directions such as design and layouts. Now, would you use the new model to create your ads? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.